Before you can get into a state of deep focus, before any strategy or technique even has a chance of working, you have to send a signal to your brain that it's time to lock in. This is a critical step most people overlook. They jump straight into work, hoping that motivation or clarity will magically show up. But the brain doesn't operate on hope. It responds to cues. Cues that tell it, we're switching gears now, time to focus. One of the most powerful things you can do is build a simple, repeatable pre-focus ritual, a short sequence that you perform every single time before doing deep work. It could be as basic as splashing cold water on your face, dimming the lights, putting your phone in another room, and sitting down with a particular drink. The content of the ritual doesn't matter nearly as much as the consistency. It's about creating a Pavlovian association. You do the ritual, your brain clicks into work mode. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Your brain and body are deeply linked. The nervous system doesn't just passively wait for thoughts to guide it. It actually listens closely to your behavior and environment. So when you stand up, take a brisk walk, and breathe deeply, you're not just waking up your body. You're shifting your entire neurochemical state. Your brain begins releasing norepinephrine, which tightens your attention. Your posture shifts. Your visual field narrows. You're preparing at a biological level to focus. And once that shift begins, your thoughts start aligning. You begin thinking more clearly, more deliberately. Think about athletes before a performance. They don't just roll out of bed and step into the arena. They warm up, they listen to specific music, they follow a routine that tells their body and mind the game is starting. This same principle applies to deep work. You have to warm up your focus system. And when you do it consistently, the ritual itself becomes the cue. You don't have to fight for motivation every time. You just start the sequence and your brain follows. One of the most effective things you can do is keep this ritual short, 3 to 5 minutes, max. If it's too long or complicated, you won't do it consistently. Start small. Maybe you sit in the same chair every time you work. You put on noise-canceling headphones. You open one specific document. Then you take 10 slow, deliberate breaths, extending your exhales. This kind of breath work directly impacts your autonomic nervous system. It quiets noise in your brain, it downshifts your internal chatter, and primes you for a calm but alert state, exactly what focus demands. The environment matters too. If possible, create a space that your brain associates with focus. A specific corner of a room, a desk with minimal clutter, lighting that's consistent. Over time, your brain learns to link that environment with deep work. And once those associations are built, stepping into that space becomes enough to begin shifting your state. We'll start to notice something important. Once this ritual is in place, you waste less time trying to get into gear. There's no warm-up period where you scroll for 15 minutes before opening a document. The moment you finish your ritual, you're already in. That's when you know the system is working. You're no longer waiting for motivation. You're no longer relying on willpower. You've trained your mind to respond to structure, and that structure gives you freedom to focus. Most people think productivity is about grinding harder or pushing through distraction. But the real edge, the sustainable edge, is about designing your brain to enter focus on command. It's not magic, it's biology, and it starts with a signal. So ask yourself, what's your signal? What's the ritual that flips the switch? If you don't have one yet, today is the day to build it. A lot of people sit around waiting to feel motivated before they take action. They think, once I feel ready, once I'm inspired, then I'll get to work. But that's actually backwards. Your brain doesn't work like that. Motivation isn't something you need to start. It's something you generate by starting. In other words, action comes first and then the chemistry follows. That chemistry, it's dopamine. Most people hear that word and think it's just about pleasure, but dopamine is actually about drive. It's about pursuit. It's the neurochemical that tells your brain, this is important, keep going. The trick is, dopamine isn't only released when you get a big reward or achieve something huge. It's released in small amounts every time you make progress, every time you move forward, even just a little. That's what fuels momentum. So if you're waiting for a wave of motivation to push you into action, you're actually cutting yourself off from the very system that would generate that motivation in the first place. Here's the strategy. Design your work so that you can get a quick, meaningful win within the first few minutes. Set things up in a way that you're not just diving into a huge, overwhelming task. Instead, you break it into something clear and achievable. That could be a 25-minute sprint where you only focus on one subsection of the project, or it could be a checklist with micro goals, write the outline, answer 3 emails, design 1 slide. It doesn't have to be impressive, it just has to be measurable, because the second you complete something, you get a little dopamine hit, and that dopamine is what helps you lock in even deeper. The key is to avoid turning dopamine into a reward you chase through distractions. Social media, YouTube, email, they all hijack that same chemical system. They give you cheap, unearned dopamine hits. And because they're easy and fast, your brain starts preferring them over the more effortful but meaningful kind of work. This creates a kind of learned helplessness, where real effort feels dull and heavy, and quick distractions feel rewarding. But you can rewire that. You can train your brain to crave the hard stuff if you build the right feedback loops. Let's say you use the Pomodoro method. You set a timer for 25 minutes and you commit to working on just one thing. Once the timer ends, you mark it as a win, maybe even say it out loud. That sounds small, but what you're really doing is conditioning your nervous system. You're teaching it that effort leads to internal reward, that you don't need external stimuli to feel good. Progress is the reward. One thing I like to do is stack these moments. Once I complete the first focus session, I stand up, shake out my body, maybe take a deep breath and reset. Then I go again. Over time, this rhythm starts to feel natural. You don't dread the start of work because you know it only takes one block to get momentum. You trust the system. And that trust becomes self-reinforcing. It's also important to protect your dopamine system from burnout. If you push too hard, too long, without breaks or reflection, you flatten that response. The rewards stop feeling like rewards. That's why it's essential to pause occasionally and acknowledge the work, not in some dramatic way, but just enough to register the win. Even writing down "got it done" in a notebook is enough to lock it in. The brain notices that and starts forming an association. Effort equals reward. What you're doing here is learning to work with your biology instead of against it. You're not forcing focus through grit alone. You're generating it, one micro win at a time. The more you move forward, the more your brain helps you keep going. And that's the sweet spot. That's where focus becomes sustainable, not because it's easy, but because your brain is on your side. You don't wait for motivation, you create it by moving. Most people try to focus using sheer mental effort. They sit down, tell themselves concentrate, and hope that willpower will carry them through. But focus doesn't start in the mind. It starts in the body, specifically in how you use your eyes. Your visual system is directly linked to your state of alertness, and it's one of the fastest ways to influence whether your brain is ready to lock in or not. Here's what's interesting. When you're relaxed or distracted, your eyes tend to move around more. You scan your environment, taking in a wide field of view, what's called panoramic vision. That's great for creativity, for brainstorming, or when you're winding down. But it's not ideal for deep work. When you need to get serious, when you want to shift into a high focus state, your eyes need to narrow. Literally, try this. Pick a single point in front of you, the corner of your laptop screen, the edge of a book, a spot on the wall, and hold your gaze there for 30 to 60 seconds without moving your eyes. Don't overthink it. Just fix your focus, keep your body still, and breathe naturally. What you're doing is mimicking what your nervous system does when it locks into a target. This kind of narrowed tunnel vision isn't just a visual thing. It sends a cascade of signals through your brain that say, this is important. Let's shut out the noise. What's powerful about this is how quickly it works. Your body starts adjusting, your heart rate becomes more stable, your breathing deepens, and your brain becomes more task-oriented. You haven't even opened your laptop yet, but your physiology is preparing to focus. That's how strong the link between vision and attention is. Now, this isn't just about the pre-work moment. You can use this throughout your session. If you feel your attention starting to drift, you can reset just by narrowing your gaze again. Pull your focus into the center of the screen. Let the edges fade into the background. It's like a manual override for your attention system. It brings your brain back on track without needing to reach for a stimulant or scroll through your phone for a mental reset. You can also design your workspace to support this kind of focused vision. Position your screen at eye level so you're not constantly shifting your gaze up and down. Reduce the clutter in your periphery. If you're writing, don't have 15 tabs open. If you're reading, go full screen. What you're doing is reducing visual noise, giving your brain fewer excuses to wander. It's not about becoming rigid or robotic. It's about creating conditions where your biology supports your goals. When you understand how vision drives focus, you stop relying on willpower alone. You use your body to steer your mind. And that's a game changer, because once your body is aligned, your brain follows. Focus becomes less of a fight and more of a natural state. Train your eyes to focus and your mind will follow. And one of the most overlooked reasons we lose focus isn't external noise, it's internal. It's not just the phone buzzing or the email notification popping up. It's the thoughts that pull us sideways, the reminders, the to-dos, the unfinished conversations, the mental tabs we leave open. These are what we call open loops, incomplete tasks or ideas that your brain keeps bringing back to the surface because it hasn't been given permission to forget them yet. Your brain is always scanning for what's unresolved. It's built for survival, so it doesn't like leaving things hanging. If you told someone you'd reply to a message, or you remembered during work that you need to pick something up later, your brain treats those as unfinished business. Even if they're not urgent, they steal attention, not because they're loud, but because they're unresolved. And that unresolved status keeps them alive in your mental space. Now here's the problem. You sit down to focus and these thoughts start bubbling up. Don't forget to call them back. I need to pay that bill. What did she mean in that last message? These aren't catastrophic thoughts, but they come at a cost. They create micro interruptions. Your attention gets pulled just slightly off center. And once that happens enough times, your focus breaks down entirely. The fix isn't to try to suppress these thoughts. That never works. Suppression creates tension. The more you try not to think about something, the more your brain amplifies it. The real solution is simple. Give those thoughts a place to go. This is where having a mental inbox becomes essential. Keep a notepad or an open document next to you, somewhere you can offload those thoughts the moment they appear. Let's say you're 10 minutes into focused work and suddenly remember that you need to reschedule a meeting. Instead of acting on that thought or trying to push it away, just jot it down. Reschedule a meeting. That's it. You've told your brain, I've got it. It's not forgotten. You can let it go for now. That small act closes the loop, at least temporarily, and that's enough to restore your focus. This isn't a to-do list. It's a mental clearing space, a holding zone. The goal isn't to fix every task right now. It's to protect your focus by capturing the distractions in a trusted system. Once your brain trusts that you'll return to those items later, it stops obsessively reminding you about them. That's when you start to feel space open up. That's when real concentration becomes possible. You can take this even further by doing a quick loop close session before you begin a focus block. Spend 3 minutes scanning your mind for anything unresolved. Write it all down. Don't organize it, don't overthink it, just capture it. You're cleaning your mental desk so you can sit down and work with clarity. The fewer open loops you carry into a session, the deeper you'll be able to go. Focus doesn't require perfection. It just needs room to breathe. A big mistake people make when planning their work is thinking that time is all that matters. They look at the clock, block out hours, and assume that if they just sit down for long enough, focus will eventually show up. But focus isn't a time-based resource. It's an energy-based one. It doesn't matter how much time you give yourself if you're trying to do deep work when your brain is tired, distracted, or under-recovered. What really makes the difference is when, during the day, you choose to engage your brain at a high level. Most people have a natural window, usually within the first few hours of waking, where the brain is primed for focus. During this time, your alertness chemicals are elevated, your nervous system is fresh, and your mental energy is high. This is not the time to scroll, check messages, or casually ease into the day. This is your peak performance window. And the goal is to protect it like it matters, because it does. Think of this window as prime real estate. You don't want to waste it on shallow tasks. This is when you schedule your deep work, writing, strategy, creative thinking, anything that demands undivided attention. Later in the day, when your energy dips, that's when you can batch the lower value work. Calls, admin, errands, whatever, doesn't require your best brain. This way, you're aligning your focus strategy with your biology, not just your calendar. And this doesn't mean you need 4 or 5 hours of deep focus. Even 1 or 2 high-quality blocks, 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours, can outperform an entire day of distracted effort, especially when you stack it with what we've already talked about: a pre-focus ritual, narrowed visual attention, and managing internal distractions. All of these elements work together to help you enter a deeper state faster. But here's the truth. If you burn your peak energy on distractions early in the day, you don't get it back. Once that window's gone, it's gone. That's why discipline in the morning isn't just about willpower. It's about protecting your cognitive edge. You're not working harder, you're just working smarter. You're taking advantage of your brain's natural rhythm, and you're making it easier to lock in when it counts. Your time is valuable, but your energy is what determines how that time gets used. Most people think focus is just about how you show up during the day, but it actually starts with how you shut down the night before. The ability to lock in tomorrow is built in the hours after you stop working. When you don't have a clear shut-off point, your brain stays in an in-between state. You're technically done for the day, but mentally, you're still carrying work with you. That lingering tension drains you, and it makes it harder to recover, harder to sleep deeply, and much harder to reset your motivation for the next day. The nervous system needs a signal that says we're off now, not just logging off your computer, but something intentional that tells your body and mind you did enough today, you can let it go. That's where a short, consistent shutdown ritual becomes powerful. You don't need anything elaborate, just a few minutes of structured reflection. Review what you actually got done. Don't just look at what's left. Give your brain a chance to register progress. That alone helps close those mental loops we talked about earlier. And then take 60 seconds to outline tomorrow. Not every detail, just the first block of deep work, the one that matters most. When you do that, you offload the uncertainty. You're telling your brain, you don't need to think about this all night. It's handled. That frees up your recovery systems. You sleep deeper, you wake up clearer, and you begin the day with direction. This shutdown practice also helps reset your dopamine system. It stops you from staying in a constant state of pursuit and gives your nervous system a break. And that's what keeps your focus sharp long term. Not pushing endlessly, but knowing when to pause. Because recovery isn't the opposite of discipline. It's part of it. If you want to lock in tomorrow, start by powering down with intention today. The ability to lock in and get things done isn't reserved for the highly disciplined or the naturally motivated. It's a system, one that anyone can train. It starts with sending the right signal to your brain, taking action before waiting for motivation, using your eyes to steer your mind, clearing mental clutter, protecting your peak energy windows, and knowing how to shut down so you can reset. These aren't hacks, they're levers. Levers that, when pulled consistently, shift the way your brain works. Focus isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters, fully present, without hesitation. And the truth is, you already have what you need to access that state. You just need to direct it with intention. Start today. Lock in. Get things done.